welcome you all and thank you for coming. I know sometimes that Madhavananda Prabhu used to quote something, I don't know where he got it, but you can have an audience without a speaker. I guess you can talk among yourselves. But without an audience, there cannot be any speaker. So it's a mood of gratitude to the people that are coming that facilitate the purpose of this retreat, which is Krishna Katha. Just a short history of the retreat. I remember I was taking prasadam someplace in Vrindavan, and Gunagrahi Maharaj came in and introduced me to a person who was in Krishna consciousness and then out of Krishna consciousness, then coming back to Krishna consciousness. And even though he joined maybe in 1978, he had never been to Vrindavan. So he brought him to see me, and then almost immediately he said, and next year we should also take him to Puri. And he was a fairly wealthy businessman, and he said, and I'll sponsor the whole thing. And then I'm pretty conversant in Vrindavan with how it works, but I didn't know anything about Puri and how you facilitate things here, so I contacted Madhavananda Prabhu and Krishna Kund, and we kind of made a team to have this retreat. And the first retreat, because we didn't know about this place appeared mystically years ago. It didn't exist before we found it. And then when we found it, it had a history. Because no one knew about this place. And then we had the first retreat, and Gunagrahi Maharaj brought a few of his people from Argentina, and a few of my students came, and we stayed in a place called the Prabhupada Hotel. And after we stayed in the Prabhupada Hotel, Jayadvaita Maharaj made a comment, the only thing Prabhupada about this hotel is the name. So that was the last time we stayed, and then after the Prabhupada Hotel, I think we had hotel swimming. Okay. And we had classes by the pool. We were outpriced from the swimming hotel. It was a new hotel. And then I know. Okay. And then we found a place, Gajapati, which it had some nice aspects, but we really didn't like the disco music. And what they cooked in their kitchen, and then somehow
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada.
we have some illustrious guests here. Disciples of Prabhupada. You can notice them by the garland. And a wealth of experience. I'll get into the story. But when I was, it's a long story, but when I was kidnapped and escaped, and I came to the Brooklyn Temple, I remember it was Pancharatna Prabhu who was kind of in charge of me getting to the airport safe. I don't know if you remember, he drove me to the airport. And when I was in college, I got a Bhagavad Gita from Lakshmi Moni. So, these people, and Tita Guna, and these people have such a wealth of experience in Krishna consciousness. They really sacrifice their lives fully. What it says in the books, that the conclusion of the whole Bhagavatam is to surrender to Guru and Krishna. Bhakti means anyabhilashita shunyam jnana, no other desire. These are rare people. And it's not something that you can actually start with in Krishna consciousness. But by our madness and the inspiration of Prabhupada, we kind of started there, even if we weren't qualified. And these are rare souls. So if you want to get their association, they're very open. You can just ask them about anything. Okay, and so I'm doing the history of the retreat. I have about 2 or 3 introductions before I get to my subject. And then Gajapati, and then we found this place, which is so suitable. Which also has really, you can see, they really have a spirit of selfless service. And they're our brothers. And they're facilitating us, and we really appreciate them. Now, a little bit about, I think, the purpose of the retreat, and I think why people are here. And we want to recreate. We don't want to just have philosophy, we want to live the philosophy. And what we want to do is we want to live in Gaur Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela. We actually want to live in it. And what's interesting about Gaur Leela, it means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, it's the exact consciousness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and what he did 500 years ago, it's the exact consciousness of Krishna Leela, but in a more accessible form. We can't dance in the rasa dance, but we can dance in the Kirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's exactly the same, except it comes in a form which is accessible to us. So that's actually the purpose here, is to have an experience. Part of the experience will be the teachings that happen here. But more than that, it's living the philosophy and experiencing what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, which is very intimate love of Godhead. You can experience. I know in the Yoga Sutras, which I was fortunate to study, a good friend of mine wrote one of the major commentaries. And I had a transcript of it before it was published. And I love how they describe practice. How do you practice? And it gave 4 things. You concentrate over a period of time without interruption and in the right mood. And when you do that, a very wonderful thing happens. You get realization. And what realization means, it's not that you just understand the truth. You see it in a deep way, and therefore you can apply the truth. That's really the goal. Because a lot of people know the truth, so to speak, but they can't see it practically in their lives. Because they don't have that deep experience. When you have a deep experience of something, you're able to reform it according to your life and according to the people you're speaking to. If you don't have a deep experience, you may keep it in a form that's not accessible to your life, in a form which you can't communicate to others. Or you change the form in a way that it's no longer what the essence of it is. So we want to have a realization. And spiritual life is based on practice. It means cultured people have times of the day for God, where they concentrate. Not meditation before your computer with your iPhone buzzing on the side. It means concentration. And of course, in our tradition, we have days of the month, like KATHA, Bhakti Janavi, Madhavatiti. They're days of God, days of Lord Hari, that if you concentrate, that devotion will be born in your heart. And that's really what we're after. Because happiness is a heart full of devotion. It's nothing else. And everyone knows it, in one sense. Or if they don't, they're really in trouble. As Jesus Christ said, what profit it you gain? If you gain the whole world, you lose your soul. And what is your soul? Your soul is consciousness, which reaches its perfection in devotion. So, you should also have times of the year for God, where not just a day, not just a time of the month, but a week, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, where your whole time is dedicated to this concentration. But in Bhakti, it's very accessible, that concentration. Because the concentration comes in Kirtan, concentration comes in stories, the concentration comes in visiting places, seeing beautiful deities, and in here, in really focusing as you eat that Jagannath Prasad. And it's kind of like a joke. It's not a joke. We were very fortunate here for many, many years to have Dr. Fakir Mohan come to our retreat. And Dr. Fakir Mohan was arguably the most learned scholar on Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the world. You can definitely make an argument. And he was filled with devotion. And he would humbly sit. He would listen to the classes. And sometimes we'd get him to give a class. So I remember one time I told him, Maharaj, please, give a class. I want you to speak on Nam Tattva, the truth about the holy name. Because I knew that one year in Bhubaneswar, he was lecturing on this verse by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. This temporary material world is full of suffering. Chant the holy name of Krishna as your only business. And he spoke on it for 3 years. I remember he came to Vrindavan. He spoke on the first verse of Manasiksha. What's that?
Guru Goshte.
Guru Goshte, Goshtali. See, he spoke. Someone said, speak on Manasiksha. It's only 8 verses. He spoke on the first word for 1 month. He was such a scholar. So I said, speak on Nam. He said, I will speak on Jagannath Prasad. I said, no, please speak on Nam. No, I will speak on Jagannath Prasad. This was the essence of his class, because he had so much faith. I don't know if I should start with this, but in Vrindavan, you get love of Godhead by the dust of the holy ground. In Mayapur, by the Kirtan, and Jagannath Puri by the Prasad. So his class was, eat more. is something really special about Jagannath Prasad. So, anyway, the purpose of the retreat is to create Gaur Leela. And the first aspect of creating Gaur Leela is spiritual community. There's no spiritual experience unless you're a Bhajananandi, a person who likes to live alone and has that kind of astrological chart where they kind of have distaste for the world. And that's hardly anyone. And bhakti also is not renunciation. Bhakti is dedication. So, community is important, and what community means is common interest. You can have so many people together, it's not a community, even if they say it's a community. If they have separate interests, it's called a crowd. And in a crowd, either two things happen. Either no one talks to each other, or they fight with each other. So the first principle is community, because community helps you transcend the limited concept of I, that selfish being that cannot experience bhakti. No matter how expertly the tilak is on your head, no matter how many verses you know, bhakti means, the first principle of bhakti is to think of others before yourself. You can't do that, you're not going to experience devotion. So community is such an important thing. So the first principle of what we do here is we develop a community. And that means the leaders and the organizers try to serve the people that are here in such a way that they don't have to think of themselves. And therefore they can think about the community and how to serve the community, which serves their interest better than they can selfishly. So it's community is very, and Gaur Leela is a community. If anyone has a separate interest in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, they're out. Really, even simply. There was the time that Lord Chaitanya, they were having their kirtans in this place, Srivas Angam. We were there in Mayapur. It's where the Sankirtan mission began. And Lord Chaitanya had come back from Gaya. His father had passed away. He performed what's called Pinda, the oblations. He met his guru. He was transformed. He needed community to nourish his devotion. So he brought his close associates together, and they do kirtan every night. We are very proud of our Maha Kirtan Melas, where we chant at most 24 hours. Someone had it 48 hours. They did 12 hours every day. And it was very tight-knit. And one day, they were doing kirtan, and this rasa, this overwhelming experience of devotion that comes with Sankirtan, when people join together and glorify the Supreme. Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha, he's describing kirtan. He said that more important, better than kirtan, just glorifying the Lord, is Sankirtan, where you glorify with others, because it gives special feelings of bliss. Special feelings of bliss when people join together in that kirtan. Where the objective is the glorification of God and not anybody's individual expertise. This is actually, I have to make a comment, this is, I think, a unique contribution that Prabhupada gave. Because kirtan can be invested so much with ego, with a person taking the stage. And if you see, of course, when you have a big society, you can't have everything perfect. But you look at the core, there's so many people that are trained in this Prabhupada kirtan. I think especially many of the young people that are coming up, they're being trained where kirtan is not about themselves. And they can join together and step out of that selfishness and experience bhakti. So our community is important. And of course, the community is based on kirtan. So we do make effort to have good kirtan. We make special effort to bring people who are expert in kirtan. If you saw the kirtan last night, you'd like that drum. His name is Partha. Born in Vrindavan, he's only 19 years old. Bengali family. Wonderful. It's practically, he just melts in with the, so effortlessly. And I would say if you have a retreat, you have kirtan, the engine is the tal. The engine is that rhythm. So we have kirtan for people. And every night between 6 and 9, while we're taking prasad and after, we have kirtan. And then KATHA, that talks about Krishna. That's what Vyasadev's realization was, how people in this age will develop devotion and get out of the center. The whole essence of the Vedas, if you can sum it up in just a few words, is to transcend false ego or false conception of the self. And the best way to do that is put someone else in the center besides yourself. And that means you have to be attracted to that person, you have to develop love for that person. And Krishna means all attractive. And to develop that attraction, you have to hear about Krishna. So we also make effort to make presentations and Krishna Katha. We actually like to talk directly about Krishna. Not just that we should talk about Krishna, but we actually talk about Krishna. And people say, I speak nicely, so I'll say this. There's perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. If I'm perfect, I can't decide between Madhavananda Prabhu and Hari Parsha Prabhu who's more perfect or most perfect. Their katha is very wonderful. And even just say, this evening, what I specifically asked Madhavananda to speak on, which is something you can never get tired of, and he can speak on so many subjects, is really the story of Lord Jagannath and what this place is about. And it's an intriguing story. So even though a lot of people have come back every year and there's a certain kind of progression in our talks and our discussions, we still have that basic foundation where everyone can enter in. And that's why I'm also giving a bit of an introduction here. And of course, I already mentioned prasadam, because Vaishnav community and developing devotion is not just your personal meditation, it's how you interact in the world. And therefore Rupa Goswami said there's 6 loving exchanges that you need to nourish your heart. Dadati pritagrinati, you give gifts and you accept gifts. Guyam atyachi prichati, you teach and you learn basically. You inquire and you explain. These things, when they're properly done in a community, they nourish everyone's bhakti. And bhunte bhojyate chaiva. you offer prasadam and you take prasadam. So it's so nice to be able to offer to Vaishnavas something the quality of Jagannath Prasad. It's not just that I'm explaining how exalted it is. You can experience it yourself. Can everyone in the back hear me? It's okay? Okay, good. I won't do that. Okay, before I get to my subject, because it's a necessary introduction today, and just explain a little bit something about Lord Chaitanya and Puri, really briefly. Whenever I would be asked to speak about Lord Chaitanya, let's say his birthday, his appearance, his Gaur Purnima, and then I'm speaking in a temple, I may lecture in Bhakti Center, and so many varieties of people are there at different levels. Remember one time I was giving a lecture, and Dhanurdhara Swami was sitting, Chaitanya-charitamrita was there, Vaisheshika Prabhu was there, I think maybe Lakshmi was there, so many people there, Meany was there, and then, a new person walks off the street. You got to speak to that one mind. So I remember I came up with some question I would ask that would give a good introduction to the subject. And I would say, God has a problem. It's the same problem we have. What is it? And then I give the answer. He's not a devotee. And that's the story of Lord Chaitanya. It's very interesting. God wants to become a devotee. And it's not that it has a kind of sequential, almost like it's in time. But there's no time on the ultimate platform above God. So they're eternal events. But the theological concept is so beautiful that the ultimate reality is overwhelming love. Rasa Vaisahad says in the Upanishads. And that's ultimately what's happening. But if you take love, for it to be relished fully, it must be relished from both the perspective of the beloved, or one who is loved, and the lover, one who loves. But if you compare the experience of that same energy, one who loves enjoys more than one who receives that love. So we can't have the concept of God just being Govinda, threefold bending form, and everyone's loving him, and he's the supreme enjoyer. He must have the experience of the devotees. And not only the experience of the devotees, he must have the experience of his topmost devotee, which is Radha. So the story of Chaitanya is a beautiful story for us, because the story of Chaitanya is the story of God becoming a devotee to teach us how to become a devotee. And even the beginning of the story is very interesting, even theologically, because he appears, but he doesn't have love of Godhead. Why doesn't God have love of Godhead? Because love of Godhead is, God is the object of that love, but love of Godhead is in the hearts of his devotees. So he doesn't have love of Godhead. So the pastime in Navadvip, where he's born, is basically as God receiving love from his devotees. His mother loves him, he has a wife, they love him, his friends love him, but he doesn't have that love of Godhead. And then at the age of 24, when his father dies, he goes to perform the ceremony in Gaya. He meets his guru and gets love of Godhead. And then he decides that, to make the long story short, because you could go endlessly into any part of these pastimes, he renounces the world to serve the world. He renounces his family to travel, and so up until the age of 24, he's in Navadvip. And then 6 years, that's called the Adi Lila, the beginning pastimes. And then 6 years, he travels and preaches in South India. That's called the Madhya Lila. That's up to 30. And the last 18 years, he spends here in Puri to fulfill what's called the internal reason for his appearance. There's external and internal. External means why God appeared for others. Internal, why he appeared for himself. So why did he appear for others? To give this spontaneous love that he himself wanted to have. He wanted to give that to the world. And the internal reason why he came is because he wanted to taste it himself. He wanted to have the love of his topmost devotee, Sri Radha. And here, the last 18 years in Puri, that's his mission. And he shows us how we do it if you follow his life. At the end, it's the end of the life. And actually, and that's called Antya-lila. His end pastimes are 18 years. 6, he spends more with the devotees. And the last 12 years, he enters more into seclusion. And how does he cultivate that love of Godhead? He focuses on the divine. This is the essence of bhakti. Because a principle of love between any individuals, what to speak of the soul and God, is that there is an energy called love between people who have relationship. You ask any mother, she has a child, she doesn't have to intellectualize. I am the mother, this is the child. My duty is to love, and I must practice this love. Here is my milk. But there's a natural energy, and there's a natural energy between us and God. And when you focus on God, and you actually concentrate on the divine, then you begin to feel it. And Lord Chaitanya showed us how to do that. You chant the holy name of Krishna, Nama Chintamani Krishna, Chaitanya Rasa Vigra, which is non-different. And you focus on it. And how do you focus on it? You chant the name of God, and you hear the stories of the name of the person whom you are chanting, which develops your faith and attraction. And then you worship the form of the person whose name you are chanting. For Lord Chaitanya, that was Jagannath, and Madhavananda will explain why. That was the form. That God, who wanted to relish the mood of his topmost devotee, Srimati Radharani, why Jagannath? Why Jagannath? And we'll go, and I think we're very fortunate, we'll go to some of the places where we can imbibe that mood. Now I'll just explain a little bit about where we're going today and the strategy behind it. Because a lot of people just flew in, and there's still cobwebs from traveling, and there was fog and delayed flights, and yes, okay. And then, so what we do today is kind of like a simple beginning. One of my friends called me, he said, "You're a world of strategy." And it's true, but I use it in Krishna's service. So what we do today is, there's actually a temple that's only about 8 minutes from here. It's called Tota Gopinath. It's one of the most important temples in Puri, with arguably the most stunning, spectacular deity of Krishna you could see. And it's very, very significant place. And I'll just mention a little bit, Madhavananda is going to explain a little bit more. For one thing, it's where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the world, through that deity. But another thing that's very important about Tota Gopinath for our inspiration in spiritual life, and is that all this very esoteric point, but all the associates of Krishna took birth in Gaur Lila. So if there's an associate of Lord Chaitanya here, there were his associates in Krishna Lila. Now they came to serve him. Where God comes, his devotees come to serve him. So Radha appeared as one of his childhood friends called Gadadhar, who came here to Puri and was worshipping this deity Tota Gopinath. Now the interesting thing about Gadadhar, all the associates of Krishna who came in Gaur Lila, they had different forms, but they had the same mood. Like Satyabhama, who was one of the queens. And Satyabhama is kind of, we're just reading Brihad Bhagavatamrita, you know, and all the queens were so happy when they saw Krishna in this replica of Vrindavan, where there's statues of the gopis, and Krishna didn't know that it was just replicas, and his full heart came out as the lover of the gopis. And the queens, they were so non-envious. They were like appreciating it. They were in ecstasy. We've never seen our husband so open-hearted and so filled with spontaneous love. And then when Krishna finally came back to the palace, everyone came to greet him, except Satyabhama. A little bit heavy. Satyabhama, you want to know why? I'll tell you why. You want to know why I love the gopis so much? I'll tell you why I love the gopis. So it's a beautiful section. But she appeared as Jagadananda Pandit, one of the associates who also had that mood. This whole story is like this. It's too much for now to explain. But Gadadhar was Radha, but without Radha's mood. Because Radha was also kind of with Krishna. They had that kind of relationship. She was a little bit strong in that relationship. And sometimes she would get so angry, she would bring Krishna to his knees. Krishna had to beg for forgiveness, so she had that. But Gadadhar was the most gentle, humble soul. And the reason why is because Radha is a servant of Krishna. So what's Krishna's mission as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What's his mission as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? His mission is to get the mood of Radha. But if Radha in the form of Gadadhar stayed in the mood of Radha, then Krishna in the form of Chaitanya would have to stay in the mood of Krishna. So she came without that mood. But how did she, or he now, Gadadhar, how did Gadadhar, Radha in the form of Gadadhar, serve Krishna's desire to develop the mood of Radha? By teaching him the Bhagavatam every day. So Gadadhar, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Tota Gopinath every day to learn the Bhagavatam. And the inscriptions, it's very interesting. the descriptions in the Chaitanya-charitamrita, they say he taught him the story of Prahlad, he taught him the story of Dhruva. So how are these stories relevant to Gopi Bhav? Dhruva it explains the story of determination. Utsahan, Nisjaya Darya. It's not just Radhe, Radhe. You got to work at it. You got to have some determination. So he studied Dhruva Maharaj, learned that determination. If you want to advance in devotional service, you got to be determined. And Prahlad Maharaj, you know why that story? Anybody know that story? Why Prahlad? Anyway, what?
Because when suffering is common, when two people are suffering, it becomes easier for the person who is, if somebody sees that I am suffering and somebody else is also suffering, so they become like-minded and like-hearted.
Two reasons are given.
What's that?
Two reasons are given. So there's a lokik cause, which is that he wanted to teach us that we should approach the Bhagavatam and Krishna and the Lord the way Prahlad and Dhruva Maharaj do. And there's an internal reason. Internally, Mahaprabhu was relishing it because he's in the mood of Radha. And Radharani relates to the obstacles that Dhruva and Prahlad were being presented with.
Anyway, we're going to go there today. But we won't go the short path. We'll go a little bit of a long path, maybe 20, 30 minutes, so we can do Harinam. And the feature of the festival today is it's a beautiful Kirtan hall. We do a lot of Kirtan. We really get into the mood of Gaur Leela. We do a lot of Kirtan. And we have very excellent Kirtaniers. And Kishore will make sure everybody remains enthusiastic. And we have some good engines. Attention to Krishna Prabhu, we have a lot of good kirtans and a lot of space to dance and transcend jet lag and get Bhava Bhakti. So we'll do that. One other thing I'll say before I discuss my topic, which I may not get to, but I'll get to some of it for sure, I know. Each holy dham has a flavor which you can feel. And the flavors of Vrindavan, the flavor of Mayapur, and the flavor of Puri, they're the flavor of God when God opens his heart fully. When God takes a position of, this is our new mic, huh? It still has the flavor of an Indian mic. There must be another way to do this.
You need a screwdriver.
Oh, we didn't get the right clip. Okay. All right, but people can hear. That's the main thing. You can hear in the back? Yeah. So, what was my last point?
Flavors.
So each dham has a flavor. And these particular, when God is in majesty, he, like any person in position to satisfy those who have a mood of reverence, their intimate side is not revealed. It's not being cruel, it's satisfying those people who have that type of relationship. Like if you grew up in a proper family and there was a father who was a respectable person, it wouldn't be his service to just be frivolous with you. He can be your friend when he wanted to be your friend. But that reverence is a very beautiful thing, to respect someone. But Krishna means God revealing himself fully in love. And that full revelation of heart has three flavors. One is madhurya, intimacy and relationship. That's Vrindavan. You'll feel that there when you go. Mayapur means magnanimity, compassion. You'll feel that. We were just in Mayapur. Chanting the holy name in Mayapur is just something very, very special. And Puri is the mood of separation. Madhavananda is going to explain a lot of these things a little bit more detail in the evening. It's a mood of separation. Because Chaitanya, even the deity of Jagannath is a deity in separation from Radha. It's a mood of separation. Okay, now my topic. But introduction is always necessary. Now I'll explain my title. Entering the forest of Vrindavan through Gauranga. I had to give a title. I'm not sure the title fits what I'm doing. But I'll tell you what my idea is that I really want to share with you Krishna's pastimes in a deep way. And not just explain them to you, but give you a meditation while you're here on Krishna. And I was recently teaching the 15th chapter of the 10th canto, Entering the Forest of Vrindavan. But whenever here in Puri, I always want to connect things to Gauranga. Now, it's not like a direct connection, but the connection is the way you enter into Krishna's pastimes is through the service and meditation on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the method. First, by service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When you serve someone, what happens when you serve someone, you're focused on their desire and they reveal their desires to you. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is what? His desire is to have the mood of Vrindavan. And his mind is always focused on the pastimes of Krishna. So what I probably want to do every day is maybe give a little scene from the Chaitanya-charitamrita, from the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Give a little scene to get in that mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and what's he thinking. Like one day we'll go to the Gambhira where he retired for the last 18 years of his life. And there's descriptions in the Chaitanya-charitamrita of him meditating. In fact, on Krishna. In fact, today, what we're going to do is after the Kirtan in Tota Gopinath, then Madhavananda will have some time to speak a little bit about Tota Gopinath. And then if there's time, and you're not tired, because our general program is to get back by 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then the next program is 4:30. Across from Tota Gopinath is Chartika Parvat, these sand dunes, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered them none different than Govardhan Hill. And it's where Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur did his bhajan. So if there's time, we'll also cross there. So there's this intimate connection between Gaur Leela and Chaitanya. So we'll get into the mood of what's here, and we'll get into the mood of what's here so deeply that we'll try to get into the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and also meditate like he did. Now my topic and the meditation. It's okay, we still have about 20 minutes, which is a lot of time, I feel. I do feel it's a lot of time. Okay. I want someone who really knows how to chant the Sanskrit. Harpers, I'll just chant the first verse loudly. Okay? They can hear us. Okay?
Sri Shuka Uvacha Tatascha paugandavaya shritau vraje babhuvatustau pashupala sammatau gascharayantau sakibhi samampadair Vrindavanam punyamativa chakratu.
Okay, what do the first two words mean?
Tatascha, and then.
And then.
And yes.
Okay, we'll begin with that. Okay? Put this down here. And then. Very significant words. Actually speaking, I keep on going to introductions, but that's where my mind is. Actually speaking, there's not much in Krishna's direct pastimes. In the 5 chapters, how many total verses? In the 5 chapters about the gopis, how many verses, maybe? Approximately.
300.
What?
250 to 300.
250 to 300 verses. That's like 500 sentences. So why? Because it's not just intellectual. Prabhupada gave the example to understand Krishna. It's not just it's not just like the guru touches your head and some electricity comes.
Shaktipat.
Well, Shaktipat. But it's also not, it's not just an intellectual process, but it's not just an emotional process. It's you serve God with your understanding and intellect, and He reciprocates by giving you understanding. And therefore, there's only 500 verses, and you worship them. And by worshiping those verses, volumes of meaning come out. Thousands of books are written on those 500 sentences. So what we do also is we get the understanding in a devotional mood. And in that devotional mood, something comes in our heart where we understand beyond our intellect. So these first 2 words, basically it means, as he said, after this. So it's a very, it's kind of like an artistic way to begin this significant pastime. Because after this, what happened before? Krishna has 3 ages. From 1 to 5 is Kumar. What?
Balya.
Bal? Yeah. Okay. 1 to 5 is Bal, Leela. And then 6 to 10 is Poganda. And 11 to 15,
Kumar.
Kishore. So there's different ages. And why? It's just like ourselves. We have different people within us to relate to according to the relationship. If you have a child, you're one person. If you have a lover, you're another person. If you're a student, you're another person. Within one person, there's many different aspects. So God, to facilitate the relationship or love of different devotees, appears in different ages. The best age for motherly love is a child. And it's so much the best age for motherly love that even when the child grows older, the mother still sees the child as a baby. And I tell this story, I can tell it again because it's relevant. Bless her soul, my mother's still alive at over 97. Right? So I still visit her. Right? And I'll have these scenes. It's the winter where she tells me, put on your hat. And I say, Mom, I don't need to put on my hat, it's not cold. Put on your hat. You know, then I get into, I said, Mom, I'm a guru. You know, I manage, so here, look at the pictures, my Yash Puja, my Puri retreat. People are sitting at my feet.
Put on your hat.
Yeah, put on your hat. You may be a guru, but you're my mother. You're my son. Right? To facilitate that love, because each love has a flavor. Prabhupada said, variety is the spice of life. So it makes so much sense. If the ultimate reality is love, why shouldn't there be different flavors of love? And one flavor of love is called anugraha, or mercy. And that's the love of a superior to a junior, to a mother to a child. And mercy requires an object of mercy. So for motherly love to be there, the child must manifest in a child has need, and therefore facilitates that type of love. When Mother Yasoda, when Krishna swallowed the dirt and Mother was cleaning out the mouth, and then she saw with the mouth of her child, she saw the universes, she saw the universal form, she saw herself. She didn't like that, because God does not need to put on a hat. She didn't like that. When you see God, and in fact, even in our Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the reason why the object of Krishna is so sweet, because the more God has majesty, the less he has need for service. And if you're a tapasvi or a jnani, where you have an immanent, you have God in full majesty, there's no service. They just meditate on God, because they have such an awareness of God's power that there's no service. So Krishna means that God appears actually fully, in his full manifestation, not covered by opulence, to exchange intimate love in varieties of ways. And each object of love requires a different form of that love. So Krishna appears as a child from 1 to 5, which facilitates the affection of motherly love, and it inspires those devotees who have that affection for him. And he appears in the ages of 6 to 10 for the sakyuras, for the friendship. And he appears from 11 to 15 to facilitate the mood of those who want to love Krishna in a romantic way, but not a mundane romantic way, a spiritual way. So here it says, Tatacha, after this. After what? After his childhood pastimes. Then what happens? I need my bookman. Then what happens? Pogandavaya, he achieves the age of 6 to 10. And when he achieves the age of 6 to 10, a very interesting thing happens. His sweetness, his charm. Can they hear me? That's the most important thing. You can hear me in the back? It's not a problem. Okay? His sweetness, his charm develops, facilitating a greater variety of relationships. Like a little baby, friendship is not a big thing in their life. But when they get 5 or 6 or 10, then friendship becomes something. So now Krishna grows, and what's interesting here, and I know I have to finish, but sometimes they start, you can hold the notes too, okay? what happens is now Krishna is going to be given the cows. Before he wasn't a cow herd boy, he was a calf herd boy. And when you take the calves, what happens? You can only stay in Vraja. Now Vraja means Vrindavan, and Vrindavan means Vraja. But Vraja also has a more specific term sometimes of the township. You know, in the previous days when I grew up, it's not there anymore. What they call now is helicopter parenting. Wherever the kid goes, the parents have to go around because the world has become so degraded that people are worried for their kids, but it screws up the children too. Because one of the main ways children learn is play. Now they don't get that, so when they come to college, they need safe spaces and trigger warnings. Because they're so fragile. Where kids used to go out and play and they'd get into fights and they'd learn how to negotiate the world and that everything wasn't so beautiful. When you get older, you also have these problems. So Krishna would, his mother would only let him go out to Vraja. And he had to be back by 2 p.m. But now what will happen is, if he gets the cows, he goes to the forest all day. And that's the mother. The mother was preventing him from going to take care of the cows. She gave all sorts of, and Krishna is saying, look, I'm really strong now. I just killed the Shakatasura demon. I'm so powerful now. You know, and I'm so intelligent, you can let me go. And she says, oh my God, what if you swim in the Jamuna? Right? And you may drown. So there's this whole tuggle going on, but it's this rasa. It's this motherly love. And then Krishna not only wants to go out to the forest, but he says, Mother, I am the servant of the cows. And the servant cannot take more than the master. The cows don't have shoes. I will also go barefoot. Barefoot? Barefoot? With the thorns? And the Lyme disease? To go out into the forest? How can you go out into the forest? First you're going to go out in the forest. And now you don't want to wear shoes. Mother Yasoda said, I'll make silver shoes for all the cows in Vrindavan. You also wear silver shoes. So but it's Krishna is going to win out. And the reason Krishna is going to win out because he was taking care of the calves. Now they're bigger, and some of them are even pregnant. So they have to go out to the forest now, otherwise they'll starve. Because they eat out in the forest, not in the township. They go out to the forest. When little calves, you bring little hay, and their mothers come, and Krishna would hold the calf's neck so affectionately, and hold it to get the milk. But now going out to the forest. So she was so worried. But so the calves that are grown up, they won't go out to the forest without Krishna. Now they won't go out, then the bigger cows won't go out. So on a particular day, it's going to mention there, a particular day, Gopastami, and Krishna goes out to the forest. And this scene, which we are going to describe tomorrow, where Krishna goes out to the forest, and he blows his flute, and the cowherd boys are doing Kirtan. And the nature of the flute, and why Narayan doesn't have a flute. The reason why Krishna has a flute, because the nature of that type of instrument is to announce your heart to the world. And when you're in a position of majesty, you don't announce your heart to the world. The classic example is when Clinton was president, he played the saxophone. But he never went for his State of the Union address and played the saxophone. He never, in a formal dinner of heads of state, he played the saxophone. Because he was the president. You have to keep some dignity for the people and it's the appropriate relationship. But when he visited Harlem, he played his saxophone. So Krishna is playing his flute because he's not majesty. He's fully presenting himself and his love to his love to the forest of Vrindavan, which is suffering in separation of him. When Krishna leaves the forest, the deer stop eating, the birds drop from the tree. It's all rasa. It's all intense love. And because I am not in Raganuga Bhakti, because I'm in Vaidhi Bhakti, and I also always look at my watch for the time, I'm going to end now. And because the introduction was long, I'm only going to have a chance for 3 people to share something they remembered from the class, a reflection that kind of struck them as interesting. Anybody like to share? Sebastian.
Sankirtan is more important than Kirtan.
Sankirtan, it gives special feelings of bliss. We're not putting down Kirtan, that's also. But when you do it with others, it's special feelings. Good. Anybody else? Yes?
Community means common interest.
Community means common interest. Crowd means separate interest. And crowd means either you don't talk to anybody or you fight with them. And that is not the place where bhakti grows. Yes?
A friend of mine said recently that community means common unity.
Oh, so community means common. Oh, well. I think with that Lasika comment,